And welcome to the Phoenix Suns Solar Panel Podcast. It's actually, I think, really exciting. We talked about this last week and we said, you know what, maybe by the time we record next Saturday, the Suns are still going to have a winning record. And who would have thought the Suns would still have a winning record even after playing the hardest schedule in the NBA? But really what caught my attention was a tweet that I'm assuming Greg put up on the Suns Solar Panel Podcast Twitter account, which was, would you bet a mortgage payment for the Suns to make the playoffs if the odds were plus 1,000? And, I'm thinking about my mortgage payment. That's around $1,000 a month. I am surprised that more than half the people said yes, they would bet at least $1,000 or right around $1,000 for the Suns to make the playoffs, even given those odds. And we had a lot of people that actually answered the polls, like 160.
I'll jump right in there and say that I would bet my current mortgage payment for sure.
Do you not have a mortgage payment, Dave? Is that
correct?
Why you're so
exactly. Yep, I'm betting zero.
I was going to guess that. How about your rent payment? Would you bet your rent payment for a month?
Oh, hell no.
But by the way, you've got to check the time when I sent that. It was 1:50 a.m., I believe, here in Phoenix. I had been up with my daughter and thought, this is an interesting question. It's on my mind because I've got nothing better to think about. So let's send it out there.
There are a great number of people that would bet their things that much on some whim like this. Absolutely, there are a lot of people like that.
Especially that early in the morning, or
exactly,
or late at night. However,
that's what
you look
Vegas
at it.
lives on. That's what Vegas lives on.
I don't know that I would bet a mortgage payment because I would probably get in a lot of trouble with the missus if I bet it and they didn't make the playoffs.
Is that basically what you're doing?
Yes, I'd be gambling with my own life. But I do feel more confident today than I did 5 days ago that the Phoenix Suns will make the playoffs based on the way things are shaping up in the West and what the Suns have been able to do so far. I would feel much more confident to do it now than I would have 5 days ago. But I still think this is a team that falls slightly short on the playoffs, but gets closer to that 40-win mark than we originally had thought. Maybe I just have Suns PTSD, and I'm just too afraid to fully buy in on this because I expect the bottom to drop out at some point. But I'm enjoying this ride. I'll tell you that much. This has been a hell of a lot of fun so far. I just am cautiously optimistic still. Probably I'm optimistic now. I was cautiously optimistic, but there's still that little voice in the back of the head that goes, "It's not real. Remember what team this is." Remember.
Was that Mufasa?
Yes. So I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would bet at the mortgage payment on it yet.
Well, we have a new poll thing going on SB Nation where you can sign up and you can vote once a week on your confidence level in your team. And so we'll be watching how confident Suns fans are in the Suns all year. And so far, we're at a high of 81% already. So I think a lot of Suns fans are really happy about how things are going, and they have every right to be, because not only are the Suns winning games, they're winning games against tough teams. They're barely losing. I mean, how many total minutes? Gosh, I wish I would have looked this up. How many total minutes have the Suns been behind this year? It's a very small percentage of their total minutes, I'll tell you that. And it's been fun. Anytime you turn on a game, it's competitive. Anytime you turn on a game, it looks like the Suns have a good chance to win that game. It's fun. And the fans are enjoying it. We're all enjoying it. I just hope they can keep it going. And what's great about this is that the schedule gets easier. So it's up to Monty Williams keeping these guys on a string, keeping these guys focused. There was only one small bit of loss of focus after they got up by 30 over the Warriors on Wednesday night. Suns, just like any good team, like we've seen other teams do for the Suns in years past, which is let up on the gas a little bit. Let the little team get caught up a little bit closer, just enough to give them some hope, and then dash their hopes. So I think that was a good experience also.
By the way, is Tim going to introduce us at all, or are people just going to assume they know who we are?
Well, I mean, at this point, I feel like if you're watching the Sun Solar Panel, you've probably watched one of our 160 episodes before. If you're listening to it, you have probably seen that. But if you need an introduction, the guy who just asked me, his name is Espo. The other dude
Ahoy,
that was
hoy.
talking, his name is Dave. My
Yo,
name
yo.
is Tim. And now nobody's confused anymore.
Look, I just wanted.
And
I
wait,
have to say ahoy, hoy. The
show?
people,
This is
the
the
people
Solar
demand ahoy, hoy. All right.
We do have Nathaniel Jackson in the YouTube chat that is asking if there is any update on Ayton.
He is still at the urinal.
No,
I haven't heard. I haven't heard a word, which leads me to believe that the Players Association's protest of it is not going as well as they had hoped.
Well, also, hold on here. We don't know what speed up means. I mean, we have no idea. This doesn't happen very often. So the ability for the NBPA to expedite an investigation could still be weeks. We have no idea. Ayton has been suspended for 25 games. He's already served 4 of those. The likelihood was almost zero that he was going to get all of it vacated. So it's really probably a matter of, is it 20 or is it 15 instead of 25? I did see online that Ayton was supposed to be testifying, or whatever, his people were supposed to be showing their evidence sometime this week. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Nothing's been announced, but I would not expect him to come back anytime real soon.
What evidence could they particularly have? And I can't believe we're talking about the masked urinator. We said we weren't going to do this, but or mellow yellow, as some of you have.
Would you rather talk about Luka Doncic?
We call him Agent
Let's talk
Yellow.
about the masked urinator for a little bit longer, and then we can switch over to the other dude.
No, he who shall not be named. No, we're not talking about him.
Hey, shout out to Greg, who in our fantasy league did trade Donovan Mitchell for 2 players that aren't playing right now.
Hey, but
nice.
Let me make this clear, right? I traded Donovan Mitchell for the masked urinator and Victor Oladipo, right? Thinking that both would be back in December, and I would have a chance to really get 2 stars for a piece of whatever you want to call it. And in the same night, 20 minutes later, Steph Curry on my team breaks his hand. I was very torn in a game I was loving watching. My fantasy team basically got blown to smithereens all in one move. So I'm no GM, and we're all glad I'm not the GM of a team. All right. I've requested
judging by NBA GM's draft and trade and free agency history, you're not too far off of being good enough to be a GM.
I did hire a goat to come crap in my office, though, so hopefully that'll help.
In your own office?
In my own office, yes. Hopefully that will help.
All right, so getting this back on track, guys. One thing that we have seen it come up a lot recently, whether you're on Suns Reddit or you're on the Suns message board, what have you, is a lot of people asking, are the Suns better without Deandre Ayton?
This is the stupidest question ever. All right. Look, the Suns are not better without DeAndre Ayton.
Let's entertain the maybe they are side, because Brendan Clean, I went back and forth with him a little bit, and he actually he is on that Locked On Suns podcast, and he spent Friday's episode talking about it. So you guys can go over there if you want to hear his thoughts. Look, the team does look good with Aron Baynes in the lineup. The problem is Aron Baynes is a foul machine, and you need someone else in that rotation, because he's not going to be able to stay out there for 30 plus minutes. The dude is a lifetime 15 minutes a game player. Even in college, he was 15 minutes a game. Even on the Australian national team, he's basically 15 minutes a game. The guy is doing an awesome job, an incredible job filling in the starting lineup, and he's been playing very well. But to assume that DeAndre Ayton couldn't be playing as well or better in most of the areas that Baynes is playing well in is just assuming, trying to, it's called confirmation bias. It's when you see Aron Baynes playing well, it justifies your take that maybe DeAndre Ayton isn't the best player. But I even went back and forth with Brendan a little bit, and he was saying that Aron Baynes this year is better than Deandre Ayton last year. But my argument was give Deandre Ayton this team. And last year's Deandre Ayton is better than last year. Then this year's Deandre Ayton becomes better just because he's on a better team. It's about the team that they're in. It reminds me of Nate Duncan's argument a year ago that he'd rather have Danny Green than Devin Booker. Remember that one?
Yes.
Nate Duncan's argument, yeah.
Nate Duncan, our favorite friend of the show.
Right, and he made a strong, impassioned argument that because Danny Green's proven it in the playoffs, he fits on a playoff level team, blah, 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 all that, all very true. But you don't take Danny Green over Devin Booker. You just don't. You don't do that because you haven't put Devin Booker in Danny Green's opportunity. You haven't put Devin Booker in a team that had Danny Green's been on. Green's been on a successful team, several successful teams, and they're doing well. But not because of Danny Green necessarily. It's because he fits perfectly on those and on those squads as a role player. So for the same reason, you don't take Aron Baynes over Deandre Ayton. Has Aron Baynes been playing great? Absolutely. But you don't take him over Ayton.
No, and if you look at the first game, the Suns played just as well against the Kings, if not better, other than that first quarter in that Warriors game, as they have in every game that Baynes has started. And I think this team is better with both of them. This is not an either or. This team is better with Ayton and Baynes playing. Now, Deandre Ayton won't set the picks the way Aron Baynes does. He's not going to be as tough defensively, but he adds different dynamics that Aron Baynes doesn't. This team is better with them together. Now, I will say this. I would not hand the starting job right back to Ayton when he comes back. I'd make him earn it. I'd make a point as Monty Williams to say, you caused this issue. You now have to earn not only your spot back, but the trust of your teammates. You have to earn your way back in the starting lineup. So I wouldn't start him the first game. He'd probably be back for second game, but I wouldn't start him the first game.
I think we owe James Jones a beer, just like he bought everyone beers when Josh Jackson didn't show up at Fry's last spring. I think everybody owes James Jones a beer for acquiring a guy who could actually look this good with Deandre Ayton suspended.
You guys want some hard lineup on-off numbers or not on-off numbers? Net
we also
rating
want your
numbers?
opinion too. Yes. So give us your opinion on who's better, Tim, and give us those hard numbers. Give it to us hard, Tim.
Okay, the whopping one-game sample size with Deandre Ayton in the starting lineup. The Suns were a net rating of a positive 44.8 with Aron Baynes in the starting lineup instead of Deandre Ayton. The Suns starting lineup is a plus 19.6. So statistically, sure, it's only one game. The Suns are better with Deandre Ayton in that starting lineup. That being said, Aron Baynes does some things that Deandre Ayton doesn't. He sets much better screens. He is definitely a better help defender. He's shooting threes. We don't know whether or not Deandre Ayton would be able to hit threes at that rate because it doesn't seem like he's allowed to shoot them yet. That being said, Deandre Ayton also does something that Aron Baynes doesn't, and that he's much better at putting putbacks, which is something that the Suns don't really have right now with Aron Baynes or Frank Kaminsky. And that is something that I think the Suns miss without Deandre Ayton on the floor. Also, he's a much better roller than Aron Baynes is.
Well, yeah, you lose that whole aspect of the offense with Ricky Rubio being able to lob to a guy, which I think will be very
Where's
dynamic.
pocket passes? Yeah. DeAndre and Baynes have both been pretty good at picking up those passes on the bounce too, on the roll.
Yeah.
I think this team is not better without DeAndre Ayton. They're different without DeAndre Ayton, and there'll be an adjustment period when he comes back to try to sort out what are the rotation minutes. How do you get Baynes in and involved enough? But there's enough minutes for both of these guys, and I think it shores up things and makes lineups make a little bit more sense when Ayton comes back. So they're not a better team without him. And just the fact that we're having that discussion is slightly asinine.
Well, I think even Aron Baynes would say that he shouldn't be starting ahead of DeAndre Ayton.
No, yeah, Aron Baynes understands what his real role in this game is, and he plays like that second unit center that comes in and goes all out. And like that's why he's fouled out of these games, because he's used to coming in for a certain period of time, being able to put all that effort and go flying around because he knows he's not going to play 30, 35 minutes, and he's not going to foul out. When you play short bursts like that, it's perfect for the way Aron Baynes plays the game. Has he been fun to watch? Yes. Has he been a great addition? Yes. Is he the starting center for this team long term? No. He's the perfect backup for this team, and that doesn't mean he won't play in certain crunch time minutes when Ayton comes back, depending on how Ayton's playing, but right now, it's just it's ridiculous to me to try to claim that this team is better without the talents of Deandre Ayton.
Go ahead, Tim.
I do wonder what's going to happen to the shooting when Deandre Ayton does return. We only have one game sample size, right? So I want to throw basically everything out. In that one game with Deandre Ayton in the starting lineup, the starter shot 12.5% from three, right? That's obviously not something that would continue, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, when you have Aron Baynes in the starting lineup, the starters are shooting 44% on threes, 50% from the corner. And I do wonder what inserting Deandre Ayton into that starting lineup is going to do for the spacing on the floor.
I actually think it's going to improve the spacing on the floor. That was one game, really. It was, right. I think, and I know you said that, Tim, but it's just, it seems to me, and I'm pretty comfortable with this, even though there's no evidence, because the Suns were worse in the league in three-point shooting last year. And in one game, as Tim says, the starters were 12% from three with Ayton. So there's no actual evidence, but DeAndre Ayton forces a lot of attention into the paint because of how easy he scores down there, because of how good his feet are, his moves are, all that. You can't just let DeAndre Ayton score. And I think as long as the Suns are under 40% from three on the perimeter on a regular basis, then the paint points are more valuable than the 3-point points, because on every possession, if you shoot 60% in the paint, that's exactly the same value as 35% or something like that, 33. I don't know what it was on threes. So threes only become more valuable the more you make them.
Yeah. Well, also, if you miss a paint shot, the rebound's shorter.
Well, and I don't think you can discredit Ayton's passing ability as well from down low. He's very adroit at that for a big man. So there's also that where that should help as he draws defenders. He can also kick it out to guys at the 3-point line. Look,
can I digress on passing just a little bit? I love the fact that the big men in this offense, the big men are set up to make passes and shoot threes. DeAndre Ayton won't be shooting threes as much, although I hope he does. He doesn't have to. He can score in the paint and all that. But I love the fact that Aron Baynes is averaging 3 assists a game. Frank Kaminsky is averaging 2.8, and Dario Saric is averaging 2.6 assists per game. That's really great. That's like the numbers that our former point guards used to put up in the last couple of years here for this team. That's every game. And then taking threes, those guys are all between 3.8 and 4.4 threes a game as well. I think that's really fun to watch. I think there are going to be teams. Fortunately, against Philadelphia on Monday, Joel Embiid will not be playing, and so we won't see, on the fortunate side, the Suns won't see such a size disparity, although it will be a tough game for them. There are going to be a lot of teams where you're going to want a big dude like DeAndre Ayton in the middle. You could argue that the Suns might have done better against Utah if they had somebody a little bit closer to the size of Rudy Gobert. But I'm not a fan of one game, add a little talent, and suddenly this team gets better. Everybody would have played a little different with Ayton in there. I think the Suns played an incredible game. We shouldn't take anything away from them on Monday against Utah. But you could make the argument, you could put it together in your head that maybe with Aron Baynes banging a few fewer minutes against Gobert and Ayton putting in some time against Gobert instead of Frank Kaminsky and Dario Saric, that the Suns may have actually had a little bit more separation against the Jazz.
Yeah, well, if we're going to talk about the Jazz game too, I'd like to give Devin Booker a little credit, because in the Denver game, they lose that game because he drives into the paint and doesn't get the foul and misses the shot, right? In the Utah game, he obviously learned from that Denver scenario, because he drives the lane and kicks it out to the wide open Oubre that had that corner three that would have basically given them the win. So that is Devin Booker in a game span learning on the fly. I not a lot of people
that's also,
gave him credit for that.
That particular play, let's talk about that for a second. That particular play had Oubre in the corner, and then Sarge in the other corner, I believe, and then a couple of other players on the wing. I'm trying to remember exactly who was in the game, but Oubre is not a good corner three shooter. So Monty Williams is going to look at that tape. He's going to go, gosh, you know what? The way I subbed out guys into that final lineup, I think it was Javon Carter and Tyler Johnson were the other two in the lineup. He would have rotated out and put Kelly Oubre on the wing, because that's where Kelly makes his threes. He doesn't make them from the corner. And of course, when Cam Johnson is more on his toes as far as being in shape, which he has since then become a little bit. I mean, Wednesday he looked a lot better than he did Monday, and he even said that when Ty Jerome is more available as a 3-point shooter off the bench, when guys are more into ready to making those shots, maybe Kelly isn't the one in the corner taking that open three. You'd rather have a 40% shooter down there than a 30% shooter.
To your point, Dave, Kelly Oubre so far this season is shooting 43% he is shooting 43% from the corner and 31% on non-corner threes.
Really?
Yeah.
So Dave was completely wrong there.
No, my recollection is that he's not good from the corners, but good on him. Then maybe Monty did exactly what he wanted to do, and it's just unfortunate that Kelly missed it. I'd rather have Kelly on the wing three than on the corner three.
Look, yeah, those wide open three right there too. Hard to get a better look for that W.
Yeah, I mean, you were not going to get a better shot, and Devin Booker made the exact right play there. And you got to give him credit for it. And I get it. On the other end,
also he had Rudy Gobert staring him down in the paint. So Booker did make the right choice passing that off, because Gobert proved all game that he could even block the 10-footers. So people who wanted Devin to have pulled up from 10 to 15 feet for a 50% chance at a shot, which still would have won the game, then that would have been fine as long as Gobert isn't the one trying to block it.
Yeah.
So I do want to take a second. Joseph Shook, one of the show's supporters, he said, how about Carter? Dude's jersey is already sold out. And while we're talking about supporters, I do want to thank a listener who did the $10 a month donation over to the Sun Solar Panel. That's Justin Sexton. So Justin, thank you so much. Hit us up on Twitter at Sun Solar Panel. Send me your address and I will send you a bag of Sun swag. If you're watching the show or listening to the podcast and you want to be a supporter of the show, you can do so. All you got to do is look at the show notes or the description below. There's a support the show button. We have a $1, a $5, and a $10 a month donation option, and we really do appreciate you guys so much.
And that bag swag is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a real pain in the ass because I have to drive down to the post office on my lunch breaks and do this, and I don't enjoy it at all.
Hey,
we really appreciate the effort you put in, Tim.
I got a solution for this, Tim. We need to get a Stamps.com sponsorship, and they can get you one of those little postage meters that they have, and we can send that stuff out straight from your home. I've heard that on other podcasts that it works nice. So
it takes my entire lunch break up. It's super happy to have the supporters though, so I'm not complaining, but it's real pain in my ass.
You should take some of the money that we get, Tim, out of all of these. Instead of buying glasses, you should buy yourself a meter.
Yeah, maybe I will. So. I am curious what your guys' take on what happens when Ty Jerome returns as opposed to Javon Carter with some of these backup point guard minutes. What do you guys think?
By the way, let's not act like Javon Carter's jersey selling out is a huge deal. I'm pretty sure they made like 3 of them because they didn't think anybody was going to want a Javon Carter jersey originally.
Mama Carter, we love Javon. We think he's awesome. Please don't add us.
Well, listen. That's not a knock on him. They just expected that things wouldn't be as good as they are, and I've loved
2.5 jerseys.
My favorite, they made them for Javon's mother. I mean, they knew she wanted them, but I love there is not a better moment this season than when Javon Carter walked up to the scorer's table and got the crowd, starts waving his
Oh,
arms,
come
and
on.
got the crowd on its feet and screaming. I had heard a couple people comment that they had never seen anybody. I actually think it was Tom Leander was the main one that said, I had never seen anybody do that other than the Gorilla, get a crowd into a game like that at the arena there. I give him massive credit for his energy, for the way he's played,
He also hit the
defense.
game-tying three.
Yeah, I mean, this guy has been everything you would want from that backup point guard spot and much more. And nobody expected it. When they looked at that trade, they thought he was just a throw-in. They did not think that he was any major piece. And there was even talks: was he or Elliot Kobo going to make the roster coming out of training camp?
Let's talk about some numbers with Javon a little bit. Look, the man in his career at West Virginia made 40% of his threes. So 1 year of not making his threes very well in Memphis should not have been held against him.
They had the 3-point line
so
when he was
funny.
in college. You look so damn old.
Look, we give Mikal Bridges a pass for shooting poorly in his first year. Of course, he hasn't proven better than that, but every rookie shoots poorly from three, it seems like, except Cam Johnson. But Javon Carter is making 2 threes a game. He's second on the team and making on average of 2 threes a game, 10 threes over 5 games. He's shooting 47% from three. He's also averaging 3.2 assists, 1.2 steals. He's a defensive. He's been cited by 2 different coaches already by name as the difference in the game defensively for the Suns. That guy deserves every minute he's earning right now. He is who we wanted all of last year's point guards to be. I know people argue with me over skill sets and stuff like that, and his skill set is different. But man, wouldn't you have rather had this guy playing this way a year ago instead of Isaiah Canaan or Elliot Kobo or even De'Anthony Melton? He's basically De'Anthony Melton with a bigger chip on his shoulder. Melton is really talented, but he didn't have that huge chip on his shoulder that Javon Carter does. I love this kid. Now, the question was, what's going to happen when Ty Jerome comes back? That's just another guy in the rotation. I worry even a little bit more about Tyler Johnson than I do Javon Carter on backup minutes, but they're all going to share the ball. Monty's going to figure out a way to do this. I've got a lot of faith in Monty Williams right now. He adjusted his offensive game plan since the last time he coached. Like, people were a little worried he would. Well, the Suns, his offense. It's just, we'll talk about offense in a little bit because I want to spend a few minutes on offense. But let's finish this Javon Carter versus Ty Jerome thing. Ty Jerome is a crafty guy too, and he's going to earn his minutes as well. There's just so many guys who are going to earn their minutes. I feel bad for Elliot Kobo. I think his days as a player for the Suns are pretty much nil. I feel also a little bad for Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges has basically disappeared offensively on a team where everybody shoots. Mikal finds a way not to, and so now he's become this year's Dragan Bender. Ooh, that's a hot take. Mikal Bridges is basically.
Wait, is it a hot take if you call it a hot take?
No.
Yes.
As you breathe
I got
smoke,
hot just thinking about it, man. I won't tell you what got hot, but I got hot just thinking about it.
Now.
I feel like Mikal is the one who's going to be more the odd man out than Javon Carter.
I think Javon Carter is going to remain the backup, the primary backup point guard, and I could see lineups where both Carter and Ty Jerome wind up on the floor when Booker and Rubio wind up on the bench, but. Ty Jerome will earn minutes, but Javon Carter has done nothing at all to warrant him losing any minutes when Ty Jerome comes back. So you will see a healthy dose of Javon Carter, and it's been pretty clear that Monty Williams has liked Javon Carter from word one. We've talked about it before in preseason when Ricky Rubio was out. Javon Carter got the start, not Ty Jerome. Javon Carter is a favorite of Monty Williams, and we're all seeing why night in and night out. So he will not lose minutes to Ty Jerome, but Ty Jerome will find minutes as the season goes along.
Serene Eclipse over on the YouTube chat saying that Mikal Bridges is a star. Personally, I'm not worried about Mikal at all. For one, it's just a second season. It's early in the season. There's a lot of competition for minutes, but he's also just not the type of player that's a high usage player that's going to shoot a lot. He does provide a lot in other areas, though. It's I'm not nearly as concerned about Mikal Bridges as I think the majority of Suns fans on Twitter, at least, are concerned about Mikal Bridges.
No, at some point it'll click for him. He's, as Dave said, he's been somewhat passive on offense, in Dragan-Bender-esque, if you want to go that route. But I think at some point a couple shots will fall, that confidence will click. I trust that Monty Williams will get him in the right headspace as well. So I'm not overly concerned about Mikal, because what he brings on the defensive end is enough to warrant minutes, even if his offense isn't clicking.
Serene did chime in, and she said, "Don't confuse unselfishness with poor play," and I can't agree more with that.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just look. I am very confident in Mikal Bridges too. He's one of my favorite overall players. He's a great guy. He does anything the team needs him to do. But come on, we can admit that he's been passive on offense, and that is a little poor because Monty Williams needs ball movement, and he's been hesitant on his catch and decisions when he gets the ball. I just don't. I was probably a little bit extreme when I said the Dragan Bender of this team, but that's basically what he's been offensively. He's really been the guy just to quickly pass it away to a non-shooting opportunity. I think he does need to get more aggressive offensively. I think he's been great defensively, and I love him as a player. But let's not sugarcoat this and say it's somebody else's fault. This offense is tailored toward people looking good and aggressive on offense, and Mikal is the one who doesn't.
Let's be clear. Tim really liked the "don't confuse unselfishness with poor play," because that's how he is on the show. He unselfishly just lets us talk, and he shows up every 10 to 15 minutes.
But Tim's our Ricky Rubio, though, because he sets us up. He sets us up for scores, and then he doesn't take all the credit.
Less attractive Ricky Rubio.
Well, I mean, nobody can be as attractive as a ravishing Ricky. I mean, let's be honest. The way he puts his hair back into that bun during the games, I'm like, oh Jesus, man, come on.
Oh, you guys haven't seen him in the locker room when his hair's down. That is even more attractive.
We've got ravishing Ricky on the court, and terribly. I got nothing for Tim.
You got
terribly attractive Tim. We'll go
Kelly
with
Oubre
that.
with the perfect skin. When Devin Booker is like your third or fourth most attractive player, I mean, that's a pretty good looking team.
Before Dave, this slides too much off the rails, I want to thank Rip93 Ford for his donation in the YouTube chat. We appreciate that, man. You help make sure that Tim's skin is still pretty every time he's on the show. So
yeah, and in like 6 months we've almost made $100 on YouTube, so it's adding up quickly.
Hey. Great choice to come over here to YouTube, then, boys.
Dave, I need you. I need you to do me a favor and ask Kelly Oubre if he is actually a Misfits fan. I've always wanted to know, and I still want to know.
I have to do my research. Okay, I will find out. He has not been Kelly was really not wanting to talk to anybody after that Utah game, and lately he's been a little short with media on interviews. The dude is. Let me talk about Kelly just for a second. Man, is he focused. He is focused. He was not happy after the Golden State game because they lost their edge, and he was the first one to talk at length about that, how they lost their edge and they didn't play hard in the second half of that Golden State game. He was super mad at himself and everything about how that Jazz game ended, and it wasn't about that 1.4 seconds. He was really mad about the fact that he missed that shot, and that guy has been playing balls out all season. I'm so happy for how Kelly Oubre has played. He is who we always wanted TJ Warren to be, basically, because he's not much of a passer. He's not much of, but he plays. He's not much of an offensive creator other than for himself. But he is so good at doing what he's doing, and he's excellent defensively. when he can get his hands in those passing lanes and get deflections and then run outs, and he finishes on the break. I just love watching that guy play. He's been rebounding better than I expected him to. He's averaging 6.4 rebounds a game, which is really good from that small forward spot because he hasn't had to play power forward. All those guys' rebounds were a little bit inflated last year because they were only the second best rebounder on the team, basically. And so when they averaged 3 and 4 and 5 rebounds, that was really hurting the Suns a year ago. Now the Suns have, the Suns have 5 guys all averaging between 6 and 7 rebounds a game. That's incredible. That's team rebounding. None of these guys are great rebounders, but they're all good rebounders. And I like how Monty is spreading the minutes as well. And so that's why their rebounds are down a little bit because only 2 or 3 guys are playing over 30 minutes a game. So I just love the way Kelly's been playing. And the only downside is that he's so pissed after losses he doesn't like talking to the media. So hopefully, Tim, short story long, I'll get an opportunity to ask him about the Misfits, but it's going to have to be in a more relaxed setting than after a game.
Well, maybe he would appreciate it after taking the L.
That's true. Maybe he would. It's possible. Some players do very much appreciate asking, getting a relevant question asked of them that has nothing to do with how bad they were or what negative happened.
Right.
Quite possible.
Hey, also, congrats to Kelly Oubre for having the best Halloween costume of any Sun that I saw this year.
The Prince one?
He looked spot on as Prince.
Was that Halloween or was that just Kelly?
Was that just Kelly Oubre?
I think that might have just been Kelly Oubre.
We'll never know. All right.
I didn't see any makeup on the face, so.
By the way, thank you to Fulster who donated $5 in the YouTube chat saying, you guys make it okay that my kids wake me up before 7 a.m. And that's why I'm hiding in a closet. And the best part of waking up is Fulster's in our chat. Thanks for being there, Fulster.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but you know what? You really dig your closet up, man. I'm every time I see it, I'm a bit envious of how much better your podcasting space is, at least on screen, than mine.
Oh, yeah. Tim, your girlfriend's in the picture.
I'm
talk about my dog.
I'm always I'm always borderline ready to suffocate in this small little box that is a podcast studio now. But I'm here for the fans. So.
I think you've done that up very well.
Thank you.
So I got a couple of pit bulls because I don't really particularly ever want anyone to break into my house and fuck with me, right? But I did not realize how big of wuss dogs pit bulls are. Like, were you guys aware of this? Because no. I really want to just start calling them Eeyore and Donkey because they are not going to protect me against anything.
Look, I am aware that pit bulls from Florida are wusses. Just look at the musician. So,
all right. Hey, so Dave, you did want to get into some shooting stats.
Yeah. So my question that I've had this week after 5 games, and by the time you're listening to this, they may have played that 6th one against Memphis, is how sustainable is what's so different about the Suns this year, and how sustainable can it be? Defensively, we'll talk about that next week, but offensively, I want to talk about some shooting stats that I think is just remarkable. How different the Suns are playing this year than a year ago. Some of that is Ricky Rubio, but a lot of that is just the whole lineup that has been acquired. Dario Saric and Frank Kaminsky, like I talked about with those assists, Aron Baynes, Deandre Ayton when he gets back. All those guys, all the big men are passing, the little men are passing, everybody's passing. So let me talk about some incredible stats here. The Suns, an unfortunate staple in the Suns offense the last few years has been contested shots and dribbling themselves into pull-up threes or pull-up twos or whatever it was. The Suns have not been very efficient. Obviously, they've been 29th or 30th in offense the last couple of years. I'll tell you, a year ago, the Suns on catch and shoot points per game were one of the worst in the league. They had only 24.6. Catch and shoot points a game, and they were just awful. I mean, you guys could watch it. This year, the Suns are 7th in the league in catch and shoot. They've really jumped up, and then an even more obvious improvement for the Suns has been how many open shots they're getting. The closest defender within 6 feet, 6+ feet wide open. A year ago, the Suns were the third worst team in the league with only 20% of their shots being wide open. This year, what do you guess their percentage of shots? Last year was 20%. What do you think it is, Tim, this year?
I'm sorry. I was looking up some stats myself for
Great.
what?
You were paying attention. I know you were.
The percentage of open shots that they had this year?
Yeah, wide open shots.
It was 20 last year. I'm going to guess it's about 44 this year.
Not quite. It's 29 because this is 6+ feet wide open.
Oh, okay.
Now,
and we're not talking slight separation. We're talking
like
chasm.
Nobody in the vicinity.
Okay.
Exactly.
That makes more sense. Yeah, 44 would be insane.
Yeah, so 20, right. But most of their threes are wide open this year. It's been pretty darn incredible. And so the Suns are really they are second in the entire league in wide open shots. First in the entire league is the Milwaukee Bucks because of Giannis's gravity, which takes me back to Deandre Ayton. Deandre Ayton's gravity is going to help.
Giannis.
I know. I just still say Giannis anyway. Yeah.
Sorry.
And the Rockets are third in the league and all the way back at 26%. The Suns are at 29% wide open shots frequency. The Milwaukee Bucks are just 1 percentage point better than them. This is an incredible turnaround for this Phoenix Suns team. It is really fun to watch them be able to get so many open shots because they are going to start making them even more, and they have picked up their frequency of making these wide open shots over the course of a few games. Because the more settled you get, the more comfortable you are in the offense, the more confident you feel, the more shots you're going to make. So I really think this Suns team that is entirely sustainable because they haven't just been playing cupcakes. The Suns have been playing some of the best defenses in the league in the first 5 games and still are getting wide open shots. Will teams get better at scouting and knocking off those, trying to defend for those wide? Sure, absolutely. Teams will get better over the year. But the fact that the Suns are second in the league right now is really incredible. And I think that speaks a lot to their ability to sustain this.
I don't think it's a fluke either. I think it has to do with when you're looking at that offensive system, right? We talked about 0.5 seconds. Operating on making quick decisions and trying to make the right move as fast as you can has led to this, plus the Ricky Rubio factor. And now Devin Booker can be that secondary ball handler in an offense, which gives you another great passer who can do that. I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think this is the real deal, and I don't remember who it was. Actually, it was Vincent in the comments section said attitude is a big difference here as well. I agree with that. And then you look at the roster, and it's the fact that there are real NBA players around the best players on this team now too, and all that comes together to give this the ability to find these wide open shots. So I do not think this is something that's going to magically shift and they're gonna drop into the bottom half of the league again all of a sudden. I think this is the real deal, and a lot of metrics that I've seen have suggested that this isn't some fluke. I think it was 538 had an entire article on this Suns team is actually real when you look at the advanced metrics, and it's not just fluke. So I think we're in for a fun season here, and that this isn't just some flash in the pan.
Yeah, they're also taking far fewer long mid-range shots per game.
Yeah, they're really efficient. They're taking most of their shots in the paint and short mid-range and behind the three. Exactly, Tim.
You mean you get rid of T.J. Warren and all of a sudden there's not a lot of mid-range shots being taken? Who would have guessed?
To get rid of Josh Jackson and there's not a lot of bad shots?
They dropped the last season, I should say, long mid-range shots, 13%. This season, 10%. Last year, short mid-range shots, 21%. This year, 17%. And they're shooting right around the same percent at the rim. Their 3-point shooting frequency has increased, and that's the difference. So they've cut out their short and their long range, mid-range shots and traded that for three-pointers.
But what's great is they're still scoring in the paint. I don't have it right in front of me anymore, but their scoring in the paint is really good for a team that doesn't have big paint presence.
Yeah, I don't have that stat in front of me, but yeah, 37.
I had it early, but it was
37% of their shots are coming at the rim.
And that's top 10, if not top 5 in the league. So it's really, really fun to watch. The Suns also, they're second in the league in assists. We haven't even talked about that yet. They have been number 1 or number 2 in assists all year. They already have almost as many 30 assist games as they had, or 31 plus assist games as they had in the last 2 years combined. This team is just fun. It's really, really good. I love the passing. The passing is with a purpose. And they're playing fairly fast. They're in the top 10 in pace, but they're not going to be number 1 in pace. But what's contributing to the Suns' pace actually is not runouts because they're putting so many. Okay, the Suns are going to get better on fast breaks because they're going to force the other team into taking more shots pretty soon because they're going to stop fouling so dang much. They are last in the league in free throws allowed because they put guys, they're 30th in free throws, which stops everything, which does not allow you to do fast breaks. And so the Suns look worse than they otherwise would in that category, while at the same time, the Suns are fifth in fewest field goals allowed. Well, it's because these guys are taking all their shots at the free throw line. That'll level out. The Suns are defending all the shots with gusto, and so I think because of that, they're fouling so much. Part of that's going to be the refs being tired of blowing the whistle constantly. They're going to get inured to the physicality of the Suns. They're going to get used to it, and so I think the foul calls are going to go down, and the Suns' defense will remain, for that reason, pretty good. But to be top 7 in defense with the worst foul rate in the league is pretty darn good.
By the way, can I impromptu bring a new segment to the show, guys?
Of course.
All right. Well, I'm going to do it anyways. I don't
How
know
could
why
it possibly go bad?
So I'm gonna introduce the hater of the week, and this week the hater of the week goes to friend of the program, Nate Duncan. He tweeted, because the rules incentivize a 6'10", 260-pound Aron Baynes to jump in front of a 6'3", 180 Steph Curry and fall down on a glancing blow, Curry injured his hand and is now forced to leave the game. What do you want? That is the whole premise of taking a charge in the NBA. Like, what? This is the stupidest argument that he's like trying to act like somehow Aron Baynes, how dare he injure the great Steph Curry by doing what every big man has done in the game forever. You take a charge. If a guy runs into you and you're outside the circle, you take a charge. Nate Duncan obviously has a hate boner when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, and I'm so sick of reading this crap from him, especially in a play like that. Aron Baynes did exactly what he was supposed to do. It was a fluke that he fell on Steph Curry's hand. It wasn't on purpose, and it probably actually helps the Warriors this year because now it gives them the reason to go into tank mode, get a high draft pick, and be good again next year. That's it, Nate Duncan. I'm done.
I do want to point out 2 things. One is on Nate Duncan's show, he did clarify that he did not think that was a dirty play whatsoever by Aron Baynes, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the point.
That's typical Nate Duncan. You backtrack when people give you crap about it. Like
that's typical about all passive aggressive people like that. They backtrack when you call them on it.
He definitely does hate the Suns. There was a
you had a thought there, didn't you?
Oh no, I got it. All of a sudden, since watching D'Angelo Russell with the Warriors, all of those people that were calling for the Suns to sign D'Lo, they haven't really been anywhere.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they also have watched Ricky Rubio with the Suns, so they've had that too.
The worst signing of the offseason has been doing pretty well for the Suns, hasn't he? The worst offseason in the NBA has gone pretty well for the Suns, hasn't it? Let's take 2 minutes to talk about the Golden State Warriors for a second. So people have been talking about Devin Booker being a losing player because he's good stats, bad team guy. One of the best things that possibly could have happened to Steph Curry is that he did get hurt, because now he doesn't have to be the next dude who can't win. There's 3 All-Stars still in that Golden State lineup. 3 All-Stars. D'Angelo Russell, Draymond Green, Steph Curry. They've been terrible this year, losing by 10, 20 points. Hey, guess it kind of sounds like the Suns. You know why? Because they have a crappy roster around them. They hard capped themselves. They made it impossible for themselves to make offseason moves to shore up the rest of their rotation when guys left. They top-ended themselves with the Kevin Durant thing beforehand. They got lucky a couple of years ago because of the way the salary cap jumped, and now they're paying for it. And you know what? Guess what? Good players look terrible around bad players. And the rest of that Golden State roster is so bad that Steph Curry and Draymond Green can't win games, and with adding an all-star and D'Angelo Russell next to them. So stop telling me that Devin Booker's a bad player because his team didn't win more than 20 games in a year, and start talking to me more about the supporting cast. And I'm going to be really sick of people who say that Devin Booker suddenly became a better player this year, because he has not. He's tried harder on defense. Absolutely. He's touching the ball a little bit less because Ricky Rubio can touch it a little bit more. Absolutely. But you know what? Everything about Devin Booker is exactly the same as he was a year ago. He's just under less duress. And I'm just really excited for Devin Booker to show people that he is the player he is. And I'm going to be fighting all year against that perception that he's changed, because he hasn't.
Well, and can we make it clear too that, okay, the perception that Devin Booker is trying harder on defense may actually have more to do with the fact that he doesn't have to do as much on offense, so he can expend more energy and effort on the defensive end of the floor. Because when you're the only guy that can do anything offensively, it's tough to have energy on both ends of the floor when you got to carry the whole team on one end of it. So I think that has had a huge impact on it as well, that Devin Booker just has the ability to expend more energy on defense because he has better teammates around him, and it's a better team defense. It's not just Devin Booker all of a sudden playing better defense. The entire team together is playing better defense. And defense is as much about communication and those around you as it is about the guy in front of you.
Absolutely. And the other thing is Devin Booker doesn't have to bring the ball up every dang time. As the point guard, people who've been pushing for point book, they don't understand. And I've been trying to talk about this because I've talked to coaches about this as well. It tires a player out to have to bring the ball up every single time. And if he's also all the offense and he's the one who's stuck guarding the best player on defense, because Devin Booker still would anyway, even last year, Devin Booker was still stuck on because some of the best players are guards in this league. That's exhausting. And I can count on one hand, I think, how many times Devin Booker has dribbled the ball up the court from the other end. He gets the ball in the half court. He still has the ball a lot in his hands, but Monty is making sure there's another point guard, another dribbler, another guy who can bring the ball up the court in every single lineup next to Booker, because he doesn't want to wear Booker out. And Monty even said it this past week again. Look, man, Devin is not as tired because he doesn't have to bring the ball up all the time. You have no idea how exhausting it is to be the guy who brings the ball up every time. And Devin Booker has other responsibilities once he gets in the half court. That's why Monty's doing that. It's not a knock on Booker. It's actually he's going to show everybody he's one of the very best shooting guards in the game, and possibly a top 10, 15, 20 player this year.
You guys want to talk about usage percentage?
Sure.
Let's talk about usage, yes.
All right. So Devin Booker, 40%. Frank Kaminsky, 36%. Ricky Rubio, 32%. Javon Carter, 29%. And Kelly Oubre at 28%.
Those are usage percentages, yes.
Tim.
And what does that tell you, Tim?
Well, even though Devin Booker isn't bringing the ball up the court, he's definitely still getting his touches.
Right.
But it's more evenly distributed.
Exactly. So it's perfect. It's perfect that he's still getting all these touches because he is by far the best player on the team, offensively especially. But he doesn't have to get exhausted. So it's perfect. Monty's doing a really, really good job. It makes you wonder how other coaching staffs couldn't do this. But I'm just going to give all the credit to Monty for having done this. I think it's really, really wonderful what he's doing with this team. And yes, he's got the ball in the right players' hands at the right times.
Hey, who do you think leads the team in points scored per 100 possessions? Give me your top two.
Kelly
Who think
Oubre.
now? Wait, are we going to limit it to guys who only get real minutes?
Yeah,
we can't say Elie Okobo.
Right, Elie Okobo certainly is, and he's third anyway. But yeah, Elie Okobo's played 5 minutes, so not counting Elie Okobo. But yes, guys that have played at least 3 games.
Kelly Oubre, and I'll go Devin Booker just because I know it's not going to be, but it should be.
Dave?
Yeah, no, I'll say the same.
All right. No, you have Cam Johnson at 158 per 100 possessions, and Aron Baynes coming in number 2 at 137. Devin Booker is actually 118 with Kelly Oubre at 121.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Cameron Johnson, obviously, when he touches the ball, he is going to score more often than not. I just love Cam Johnson in this lineup, and he hasn't even shown his ability to drive, because when those guys start closing out on him like crazy, he can drive the ball too, and he can pass it off. He can dump it off.
Did you just call him Cam and Cameron in the same sentence? That is impressive, David.
Cam Cameron.
I appreciate you, David.
Isn't that Cam Cameron?
I'm sure it's
actually an old actor of some sort. Yeah. Okay.
Before we get out of here, I have to do something. I'm going to be in the building on Monday. I'm going to see Suns 76ers live, and
How do you feel about missing Embiid?
Hold on. I can touch on that after this, but I have to do this because it's first time I've been in the building in a little while, and I have to. Do we have any violin music we can cue up? Anything like that? No. All right. I have to sit
It
here.
Might be able to add some in the bed.
And I have to look straight into the camera and talk to you, Mr. James Jones. I owe you an apology. On this program and in many other formats, I was severely judgmental about how you were going to perform in this job and whether you wanted this job over the last 12 months. I was wrong. Look, I had been hurt. I had been hurt in a lot of previous relationships with GMs. I mean, look, I lived through in person the Lance Blanks era. That's right, error, not era. And I got to know him and got to be hurt by him as an employee and as a fan. I got to know Ryan McDonough, and I love Ryan McDonough, but some of those moves hurt me as a fan at times. I was skeptical. I was scared, and I wasn't willing to take a leap of faith. And for that, I am very sorry. You have turned the culture around. You've turned the roster around in terms of bringing real NBA talent that makes sense as a unit and as a whole. And you've actually made basketball fun again. So from the bottom of my heart, James, I hope you can forgive me for my past grievances and errors. And if I inadvertently run into you in the building on Monday night, please don't be too upset with me.
Are you doing this just so we can release this as a snippet so you get allowed in the door?
It's actually, I have to send this to Julie Fye. It was part of the agreement so I could get back in the building. I had to make a public apology to James Jones. So
are you going to get a pass to get down in the bowels?
I don't know. We'll see how that clip plays with the front office.
You want me to? I can get you a pass. But I'm sure you have your own connections.
I actually genuinely mean that. I do very much appreciate what James Jones has done for this team, and you cannot discredit what Trevor Buckstein, Jeff Bowers as well, that whole front office has done.
There's just one
Jeff Bauer, excuse me. We don't hear from him, so it's tough to know how to.
We don't know how many there really are.
Yeah, there could be multiple Jeff Bowers in the building. We are not aware. But no, what they have done, this has been a massive turnaround, and you look at it, and you can actually tell the culture difference, the attitude difference, and the way that they play is different. So I genuinely have turned over a new leaf. A lot of people won't admit when they were horribly wrong. I'm willing to fall on the sword. I was horribly wrong when it came to that. So
I will throw out a little bit of a snippet. I don't know how relevant this is, and this person will downplay it, but Lon Babby was instrumental in getting that front office arranged the way it is right now. And it happens to be the most successful front office the Suns have had, even including him, since Steve Kerr left.
Look, we both have have a lot of respect for Lon the man, and the pride he took. He as much as anybody
still loves his team. He still comes to a lot of the games, and he is he's still a unpaid but very much respected advisor for Sarver. He took a back seat for a few years when Ryan McDonough came in, and I know Lon was he won't say it, but he was slightly disappointed with how Ryan wanted the front office to be about him for a few years and not, and basically take over. And that's great. And Robert Sarver gave him that opportunity because he was the up and coming GM. But when the Suns really needed it, Babby was able to step in and help arrange that hire of Jeff Bauer, as well as making sure James Jones became the GM. I don't know how big of a role Lon played, but it was a role, and I appreciated him for it.
And there was not a man more. He cared about the fact that they were losing. It hurt him personally that he could not be an instrumental part in getting this team back to respectability and the level that fans wanted to. So it's a much praise to him. I've always liked Lon a lot. He took a lot of heat, but probably not fairly so.
Yeah, I want to say big props to James Jones as well. He's done everything he said he was going to do. Here's the thing: he didn't say one thing and do another. He spent all last year saying exactly what he was going to do this summer, and he freaking did it, and it worked. And so, big props to James. I hope he comes to Brightside Night again this year, so everybody can stand up and give him a standing ovation. That's great, James.
Yeah. So I
didn't mean to turn this into a weird love fest. I just but hey, I still hate Dave if that makes everybody feel better. So.
That's okay. I hate Espo too.
I'll see you on Monday.
We all love Tim there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was fun. So we'll be back again on Wednesday, 7 o'clock Arizona time. I can't remember if there is a time change yet, though I guess that doesn't really matter to most of the people watching. You can figure it out.
There is a time change as of tomorrow morning. We're only 2 hours apart. The distance is the same, but the time is less, Tim.
So, Tim, are you just going to do this an hour earlier going forward, or are we changing our time?
Yeah, no, it'll be at the same time. Honestly, so being on the East Coast, some of these Suns games start at 10:30 at night, and I have a real job like most of the people that are listening, watching, and my fellow co-hosts. It is really hard to start a game at 10:30 at night. I'm incredibly excited just to have games start an hour early for the West Coast ones.
I'm glad we could help your problem with that, Tim. So
yeah. Oh, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. We changed the time for you, Tim.
Yes.
All right. So we out. We done.
Ahoy.